First, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Brother Bratton-Bey and family and his staff pertaining to this great event that's about to take place, and giving all perfect praise to Allah, and giving all honor to all of our ancestors and all of the divine prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, and our last and most illustrious prophet is the Honorable Prophet Noble Jew Ali, who's our Savior and our Redeemer. Islam, Islam, Islam. Thank you.
Islam. Presently, we have National Grand Sheik JoelBratton-Bey. Thank you for joining us at Circle 7 TV. Honors and praises. So, Islam, National Grand Sheik.
Islam.
Thank you for having us here at this establishment at the temple number 13. This is Circle 7 TV, and we're going to ask you a few questions. So
Absolutely.
Feel free to answer as best as you feel.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question I want to ask is, who is JoelBratton-Bey? For those who don't know or may have heard of you or think they know you, who is JoelBratton-Bey?
Well, JoelBratton-Bey is an individual who, as a child, have always wanted to seek the truth. As my adolescence, I always wondered why our folks would always be looked at as subhuman, always be in a position to be locked up for whatever various crimes, all the injustices. And the family that I came from was very religious. It would take me to church, and as me going to church, I would always look around and try to figure out why our people would be hooping and hollering, falling out, and it was all about Jesus. So, as my years progressed, going back and forth, dealing with these religious orders, I started asking questions. So I was on a quest.
Okay.
And the preachers that I talked to, I would ask certain things about Jesus. Who was he? How did he look? But I couldn't get a direct answer. They would tell me, well, in time you'll find out this and that. But the churches I was going to was quite nice, with a Baptist church, and it was very long-winded. And as a child, I just couldn't deal with that. I was glad to get in and out. So one of my buddies took me to a Catholic church, which was only an hour, so I loved that for a moment. But I wasn't a member, and one time I had stole some money from my parents, and I went to church to confession, excuse me, as I thought to relieve myself by talking to the Father about getting saved and getting to be forgiven. But once I went into the confession booth, the Father said to me, because I kept calling him sir, and he said, well, you asked me was I a Catholic? Did I make catechism? I said no. So I said, well, so he asked me why I was in there. And I told him, I said, well, I stole some money from my parents, and I thought I could come to confession and confess, and maybe you could bless me and all that would go away. But lo and behold, when he found out I wasn't a Catholic, he told me I had to leave. He kind of put me out. I couldn't believe that. And not to talk radical about the Catholic Church, but that was something that stuck with me for a while. So as I was getting older, I started going to various other religious orders, but no one could really give me the answers that I wanted. So by me being who I am spiritually as a young child, which I still didn't understand, but then as I was continuing to go to these various churches, so friends of mine who was in the Moorish Temple invited me to one of the meetings. And when I went, my spirit was taken, because I saw our teacher at the time was Grand Sheik Richardson Dingwell, and he was very profound in what he was saying about certain things, and the questions that I asked, he answered. So quite naturally, he said, don't take for granted what I'm saying, check it out for yourself, do the research. I'm older now, so my conscience is a little heavier than what it was when I was a child, but nevertheless, I'm still searching. I still wasn't quite planted, but from what I could gather, I was in the right place. So I started doing some research and come to find out what he was saying was true. So then that grabbed me. And so by that being the case, I joined the organization, and by me being a part of the organization, everything that I always thought about our people was coming to light, dealing with this truth. And once you know the truth, you have a kind of freedom of mind. You feel comfortable, your spirit and everything. So by me understanding what it was, and I was married at the time, but my wife and I, she was a good woman, but she wasn't a part of the Islamic paradigm, and we had problems, so we had to separate and divorce. But nevertheless, this movement, the Moorish Temple of America, is the greatest movement on the planet of Earth for the salvation of our people. And the reason why, because this is the only organization that you can get into and find out the truth about your nationality and birthright. So this is about me. And once I found out that my quest has more so been satisfied, I began to realize the role that I had to play, because we all have a purpose in life. And I realized that this was mine. So I took the understanding of the knowledge and started spreading it with family and friends, and it became a foundation for me in order to keep going, keep moving forward in this light in order to help my people.
Islam. Okay. So that actually kind of segues into the next question that I actually have for you. So how did you become the national Grand Sheik of this movement? You've explained, the origins of what led you, your spirit and your conscience to this temple. Mm-hmm. So you joined the temple, and you're learning about your nationality and your birthrights and who you are and why our people are in the position we're in. Mm-hmm. How did you go from that point to becoming the national Grand Sheik of the Moorish Temple of America?
Okay, well, I joined the organization on April the 18th, 1975, and I became an officer, I think it's in June of that same year. Now, I was an officer at the time, and so quite naturally, in our organization, you don't be put in a position because someone know you. You're elevated through your words, and deeds. So by me knowing what I knew and demonstrating the things that I was doing, our leader, our master teacher, had saw favor in me, and so he made me the chief investigator of the organization, because there was some tax issues that we was facing, and things didn't go the way it should have went according to the law. So he asked me to investigate, and he put me in a position to be the chief investigator. And stemming from that, we had found out that there was some internal problems from individuals that was in our organization. Mm-hmm. So by that being the case, things more so like fell apart because of corruption, if you will. And by that being the case, then he elevated me to the Grand Sheik at the time. Okay. And this was in 1986. So I didn't become the National Grand Sheik until two years ago. And the reason why is not because I wanted the position. I didn't even want to be a Grand Sheik, because I've experienced so many things with different people. I didn't want that responsibility, but he put it on me, so that's what it was. But the executive body indicated that being that all the national work that I was doing, I'm the one that should, fill that position. So that's how I became that.
Islam. Okay, thank you for answering that. So another question, and a lot of Mo's ask this. With a lot of our brothers and sisters waking up to the reality of their nationality and their birthrights, there's a lot of confusion out there, especially for someone who is in an unconscious state and starting to wake up or realize, they have a nationality, they have a birthright, this is your land. And you can go ask 10 Moors or 10 Mo's or go to 10 different temples, and more than likely you're going to get 7 different answers regarding our process, how to proclaim your nationality, what the Prophet taught and what he instructed us. So the next question is, what caused, in your opinion, what caused the division between the Moors within the Moorish Science Temple of America? And in your opinion, what will it take to get all faithful Moors to unify and come in unity?
Okay, from my experience and what I've observed, like I said, this organization is the greatest organization for the salvation of our people. But the thing is, truth is not totally being taught. And just like you said, the movement is both divine and national. And you can't do one without the other. But the majority of the temples are strictly on the religious side. And so when our founder left off the scene, after his demise, and you had a lot of the officials at that time jockeying for position, who's going to take charge of this. So you had different fractions. You had Chief Kirkland-Bey, you had John Givensville and others. John Givensville was the reincarnated prophet, and so there was controversy about that, and others who claimed to be quote-unquote the figurehead for the organization. So there was a separation, and there was a difference of ideology coming from different people. So quite naturally, the temples were split, and from that day to this day, they still split because there's a misunderstanding about what the prophet has demonstrated and what the movement is really predicated to. So from what I can see, and from what I've experienced, even meeting with certain officials, we met with the FBI on a couple of occasions, and they came to us not to do any, make like that it was a problem with us, but they just wanted to find out what was going on in the organization because there was so much confusion. And stemming from what they told us is that it was a power struggle, it was about making money. And as you can see, a lot of that is going on. So stemming from that, and once again, you can't do one without the other. I'm talking about divine and national. And the national side is a must. We must understand the national side of the movement in order for us to move forward. And I'd like to just, let me see, the warning, this pamphlet here. This is the warning of 1928. This is the national side of the movement. It represents that. The majority of the temples don't teach this. But see what is so significant about it? Our prophet Noble Drew, the founder, made reference to the word national in this particular pamphlet, starting with the cover page, 28 times. So he's making a statement. And one of the key things that he brought out was that the 14th and 15th Amendments are not applicable to us. And it's not. The 14th Amendment is civil rights. The 15th Amendment is voting rights. But he didn't say the 13th wasn't. So this being the Moorish Science Temple, it's proper. And it's a must that we use the science to understand what the prophet was doing and how he was trying to educate us by bringing in the 13th Amendment. He brought the 13th Amendment with us in 1928, but it's not the one on the books, because the one on the books don't say anything about us being free, the language that is, or slavery has been abolished. So the question is, we got to look at this, dealing with the law itself, because when you ask the average person, I don't care whether you're a conscious person or not, are you free? You'd be surprised the array of answers you get. And then if you ask, are you a citizen? People are going to tell you different stories about this or that, about the law.
Islam. No.
And you want me to continue?
Continue, absolutely.
So let me just get into that a little bit. Well, one of the main things that's a problem for us is how we've been classified and identified. That's crucial. So in the prophet's literature, he gave us bullet points. One of the main things on the first page, he says, the third paragraph, it says, there's but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only, the word only, through the connection of the Moorish divine and national movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by other citizens. So if you're using the word only through the connection of the Moorish divine, so if you're not coming through the Moorish divine and national movement, then you're not official. And you're not proper, you're not really coming through the true teachings of the prophet. Man, the thing is, see, the truth does three things. It set you free, make you free, and keep you free. And even Jesus was telling his disciples that, he said that in order for us to be free, we got to know the truth. So that's what this is all about, knowing the truth. So what is this truth? The issue is this: us being who we are as a national descent organization. We are descendants of the ancient Moabites who was given permission by the pharaohs of Egypt to inhabit Northwest and Southwest Africa. But the main thing, many Moors have said they're Moorish Americans, but the question is, anybody can say that, and people can say, well, I'm a Moorish American and the prophet got everything for us, I don't need to do this and that. But see, this is the paper government. In order for you to get through, you got to have your paperwork straight. Everything is a process. And even though when the prophet was alive, he didn't have these problems that we encounter today. Why? Because he was under common law. But now with the Federal Reserve, the UCC and whatnot, the whole government has flipped. So in order for you to get back into the constitutional form as a prophet said, you got to go through a process. So let's get back to this 14th Amendment. If you say you're a citizen, I would ask, what law makes you that? A lot of Moors say, well, the prophet made us citizens. So I said, well, show me in the prophet's literature where he made us citizens. Even though he's given us an outline dealing with the nationality card, he says, I am a citizen of the U period, S period, A period, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. What does that mean? So a lot of people think he's talking about just the USA, but when you say U period, S period, A period, that means we the people. He's taking us back to the original foundation of the government, and that's confirmed through Act 6 when he says we are part and parcel of the said government. That means before. So if we was in government before, but something happened for us to fall. We lost our birthrights in 1774, and then in 1779, let's look at what took place. Marks was put on us. These marks was what? Negro, black, colored, African American, etc. All of these marks was a means to enslave us because we have been dehumanized once we have accepted these marks. So if he's telling us that these marks was put on us in 1779 and it lasted until 1865, the question is, what happened? We don't know what happened. So check this. We don't know that the great majority of the founding fathers was of Moorish descent. You had 8 Moorish presidents before George Washington. Now they say George Washington was the first president. He was of the United States, but he was a general of the Revolutionary Army. So if he was a general, somebody had to appoint him.
Indeed.
And who did that? John Hanson. John Hanson was from Maryland. He was a Dog Island brother. He was the one who saved this country from being taken over by the British. Now, if it wasn't from him, and even to determine who was the first president, it's through the seal. All the presidents to this day use his seal because he had the first seal to establish the fact that this was, quote unquote, a government national as well as international. And if it wasn't for him or France, when the Revolutionary War was going on, all the delegates, the states left him by himself to fend for himself. Why? Because he didn't have money to pay the troops. So they got disgruntled, they left. So he, with the aid of France sent ships and money to him to more so refurbish the whole army, and they came back, and that's how that war was won. But now, you don't hear about him. They keep him in the dark. But the thing is, the Union itself, he, as well as President Lincoln, were the only 2 presidents who really advocate saving the Union. So what is this Union? The Union is older than the Constitution. Out of the Union came the Constitution. So what is this Union? It commenced with the Articles of Association of 1774, which you don't see, which the Moorish president was Peyton Randolph. Then that matured into the Declaration of Independence of 1776. Further matured into the Articles of Confederation of 1778. Thus, and then, it comes a more perfect union in 1787, 1789. The first 7 articles of our Constitution is the Moorish foundation. See, we got to understand, we brought these Europeans into our house. We didn't come into theirs. So, and we made them part of this government. But what they did, they watched us, they studied us, then they flipped us. You see. So now, here we are, going back to what is taking place. Now, we are no longer looked at as Moors. Now we blacks, Negroes, etc. But see, the Moors as well as the Europeans were making a lot of money off the slave trade. That's why they came in with the 808 clause, but which brought about the Civil War because they didn't adhere to that 808 clause, and everybody was making money off of our energy. So now the Civil War ensued. The South was winning until Lincoln emancipated us. The turning point of the war was Gettysburg. 7,000 of us died in the half hour of Gettysburg. If anyone had the opportunity to go to Gettysburg, just look at the Islamic symbols all around. The Civil War wasn't just between two political entities, the North and the South. It was an international war. So, like I said, if it wasn't for us coming into the war to fight for our freedom, we'd still be in the fields. You understand what I'm saying? And Lincoln also was one of us. He was a mulatto. Belungian. He was a Moor himself. So getting back to your question, I know I'm veered off a little bit.
You got it, National Grant.
But getting back to the question, the only thing that's going to bring the temples together is tangibility. See, they got to see that this law is real. And the thing is, how does one do that? See, well, we got to understand that in order for us to be free, we got to go through a process. Because if I ask the average person, you say you are free, then what law made you free? Now, we've been taught that the 13th Amendment with 2 sections made us free. That's the biggest joke on the planet. Mm-hmm. Why? I want to read this because it's very important. There's so much. But I want to let everybody understand something. And you tell me, maybe I'm crazy. But let's see now, this is what's on the books. This is the 13th Amendment with 2 sections. And then it says this. It says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted and shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So where does it say you free? Where does it say slavery has been abolished? Something wrong with the picture. Then they come with this section 2. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. What is appropriate legislation? You need to look in Black's law and look up the word appropriate and legislation. You're going to find out something. And it's not just in the 13th Amendment. It's also in the 14th Amendment, Section 5. It's also in the 15th Amendment, Section 2. The same wording, Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. That statement has already been satisfied in the first article when it says all legislative powers here and granted shall be vested in the Congress of the United States, which shall consist of the Senate and House of Representatives. So you don't need that. So let's look at what happened. Now, what we don't know, we are special folks. We're not black people, colored folks, none of that. Man, descent, nature does not change. Whoever your forefathers were, that's who you are. But if you don't know yourself, how can you identify yourself? When someone else can identify you, they got you. So now, that's why the prophet is so important, because he's the only one who brought us nationality and birthright. You had our leaders currently and in the past. They had given us a semblance of history about self, but they didn't have the key to walk us through the door. The only person who did that was Prophet Joel Leach. Why is that? Because he's the only one brought us nationality and birthright, and no one else. So look at what he did pertaining to this whole Civil War piece. When he says slavery ended in 1865, we got to understand the laws that freed us. So the law that freed us was the Emancipation Proclamation in conjunction with the 13th Amendment with 20 sections. But there were 4 proclamations. They only make mention of one, which is the January 1st, 1863, that freed us in the southern states. But the 13th Amendment with 20 sections freed us nationwide. That's why there was 20 sections, because this substantiates your nationality and birthright. So when you understand what has taken place with us, let's look at what did take place. They debated this whole slavery issue on March 31st, 1864 in the Senate. They declared that the only remaining law, there's no other law on this planet to satisfy this slave institution but the Levitical/Hebrew law. Why the Hebrew law? The Hebrew law governs the planet, which is the Moorish code. We the first people on the planet. Check this. We from a royal house. the royal house, the first house. We are a direct link to the Godhead, for instance. When you go in Genesis and you read where it says, let us make man in our image, in our likeness, male and female, he made them, now go and replenish the earth and be fruitful. Our prophet Ira Leach teaches us that we the founders of civilization. We the founders of the first religious creed. We the founders of the holy state of Mecca. So if we were the founders of civilization, that means we was first, right?
Indeed.
So if that's the case, then therefore we were the first people in the image of who? The Creator.
Islam.
So there's more to this.
No, absolutely. Keep going. I'm
Okay,
with you. I'm with
okay.
you.
So now, so why would they use the Hebrew law for a whole bunch of Negroes? Because they know man descent nature don't change. Whoever your forefathers were, that's who you are. But if you don't know yourself, like I said, they got you. So now, let's look at what they did. This Hebrew law is so significant because what they did with it, they debated it, right?
Indeed.
Now, we all know a little bit about Dred Scott. Now, they freed Dred Scott, and he thought he was a citizen, just like many of us do, think we citizens. But Dred Scott had a problem. They never made him a citizen, just like us today. They didn't make us citizens. Why? Because we didn't go through a process of naturalization. Now, you have a lot of Moors who talk against naturalization, but let me read the definition from Black's Law about it. I'm just going to try to tie in some things. Now, this is what naturalization says. This is the 5th edition, Black's Law. Now, check this language. It says, the process by which a person acquires nationality after birth and becomes entitled to the privileges of citizenship. Now, many of us think that we citizens, right?
Indeed.
Now, we fought the Civil War under the mark of black, Negro, and color. Once we became free, black died, color died, all the vestiges of slavery died with it. We weren't supposed to be calling ourselves black, Negro, and colored again. We fought to get from under that. So why are we still there today? Something wrong with the picture. So now check it. The reason why is, when you look at the word nationalization, like some of these Moors trying to say, now this is what the Black's Law says about nationalization. It says the acquisition and control of privately owned businesses by government. So where did it come with you as an individual? You understand? It's just like when Germany defeated Poland, they came in and nationalized the whole country. Everything. But now, with us, something is wrong with this picture. So now I know I'm bouncing back, but I got to kind of, I got to try to get you to see something here. So let's get back to this policy of freedom, dealing with what they used to free us under. They used, like I said, that Mosaic code, right, to free us. Now, it's in this book. Hey man, where is it? I had it right here. This is okay, here it is. Okay, this is a book that we have created for the masses. You got all the proclamations in here and the 1320. But what I'm going to do is read you an excerpt from what happened, the Hebrew law, in the Senate, March 31st, 1864. Now check this out. Now this confirms why naturalization is so important. Now this is what it says. It says, I mark, said he, in this connection that the Levitical code or the Hebrew law contains a provision for the naturalization of foreigners. We're not foreigners. Whether captives of war or voluntary immigrants, we're not voluntary immigrants, but we're captives of war dealing with this Civil War period. Okay, and continuing with this Hebrew code, I want to continue just to read, just to highlight about the compensation. See, that's why the prophet said don't give up the slave name, because you're going to be compensated through that. And why? Because, see, we're property. A lot of people say, well, that was then. But no. The proof that we still being held as slaves because we still carrying this man's name, Jones, William, that's not us. That's him. And that's why I always like to demonstrate roots of Kunta Kinte. He was of Moorish descent. He knew his God. He knew his religious culture, his language, everything. But the main thing that they wanted to do with him is strip him of his name. And he fought hard to keep that name. But they finally got him to submit. Now he's Toby. I'll say Toby Jones. So now he's the property of the slaveholder. And what is so significant about a nationality? Even dogs have nationality. French Poodle, Irish Setter, German Shepherd. But here we part of that. We ain't nothing but an animal. That's why at the end of the surveys, when he wanted to find his ancestry, when he went to the citizenry ledger, it wasn't there. He had to go to the chattel side. So all this is key. And getting back to this Hebrew code, it deals with the compensation. See, render the Caesar the thing that's Caesar, and give unto God the things that's God. Now, the reason why the 14th Amendment, they had to vote it out because it's in violation of the Constitution, Article 6. Article 6 bind all the judges to it because they've taken oath to adhere to this Constitution, right? But we don't know that the Emancipation Proclamation is the law of the land. So when the prophet tells us to get back into the constitutional fold, what does it mean? So when you get back into the Constitution by them warranting the Emancipation Proclamation as permanent parts, not just parts, but permanent parts to the Constitution on December 15th, 1862, the vote was 78 to 52. Every time you see the first 7 articles, you're supposed to see the Bill of Rights, then the Proclamation, then the 13th Amendment 20 section, which enforces it all. So now, there were 4 proclamations. And I'm still haven't forgot about this Hebrew too. I'm gonna tie this in. You got 4 proclamations. You got, when you read the January 1st, 1863 proclamation, in the preamble of it, it alludes to a date, September 22nd, 1862. You don't see that. That's called the initial or the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. That deals with the colonization and the compensation. Now, what is illustrative of that is the Liberty Bell itself. We don't have the faintest idea how that Liberty Bell applies to us. It's a landmark. It's never to be moved because it's on the 36 degrees, 30 longitude latitude. Actually, where that bell is where Moses received the laws here in the land of Moab, because this is the land of Moab. All of north and west, southwest America is the land of Moab. So now, dealing with that, there's a divine description on this bell. It's Leviticus 25:10. There's our 7. There's the 10 represents the Creator, right? And this is what it says. It says, ye shall, I'm just quoting it, ye shall holler within the 50th year, proclaim liberty throughout the land, and it shall be a jubilee unto you to do what? Return every man into what? His family and his possession. So the question for all of us is, who's our family? And it's not Jones, William, Hurst, that's him. Our prophet, our illustrious prophet, made us aware of who our family is. We're not just a family, we're the family. The first house, the royal house of Israel. So what is this royal house? Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, Joseph by Mary, Jesus, etc. We the people of the book. Not one book, but all the books, because we was first. So he made us aware of our family. Our family, we descendants of the ancient O-Beys. That's our family. You understand what I'm saying? So, was not Abraham Hebrew, was not Moses Hebrew, Jesus, the whole house. So, if man descent nature doesn't change, who your forefathers were, that's who you are, then we are Hebrew Muslims, because all of them were Muslims. They weren't Christians. We are Hebrew Muslims of what? Moorish descent. Jesus himself was what? A Canaanite Moabite. So now, many of us talk about Jesus. He's our brother. If you ask the average person, well, how do you know? Well, it's this and that. He's your brother because we're all in the same family. It's just like you have a family reunion. You have people coming from out of state, in the state, different complexions, different styles of hair, different features, and different names, right? But what is it that they have in common? They all are the same family. So if you stretch this out on a global scale, that's what is meant when it says out of one there's many, out of many there's one, because we all over the planet. The 12 tribes were scattered. Why? Because we honor not the creed and principle of our forefathers, so the Creator punishes us for that. Why? Because we didn't adhere to His laws. So the only thing that's going to get us back in the grace of the Creator is adhere to these laws, because history in the present is deep in the past. So now, I know I'm moving fast.
You got a national grant. It's a lot of information.
Let me get back to this, just the Hebrew code, tying you back to that Levitical code. Now, it says, ye shall holler within the 50th year, proclaim liberty throughout the land. Now, the prophet was on that page. I'm going to bring something up about that. When it says, ye shall holler within the 50th year, proclaim liberty throughout the land. And the word liberty in law means birthright. And it shall be a jubilee unto you to return. So the question is, how do we return back to our family? Render the Caesar the things to Caesar, and give unto God the things that's God. Because we are the God people of the planet. We from the royal house. If you read the 83rd chapter of Psalms, when it says, let us cut them off from being a nation, and their name be known no more. That's us. Because we don't know our names. Then when you go to the 12th verse of the 83rd Psalms, it tells us, let us possess the house of the gods. Now, we are the God men and women on this planet. But by us not knowing so, we can't make the connection. So, when it says to return every man into his family and his possessions, see, we got an inheritance. That's why the prophet had to come. To bring us our what? Nationality and birthright. Our right at birth. We don't have a right at birth because we are still black, Negro, and colored. So in order for us to get that birthright, you got to proclaim the nationality through the naturalization process. So now, check this. That promised land that the Liberty Bell is symbolic of is what Martin Luther King talked about when he said, I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen the promised land, but everybody couldn't cross the water. That promised land is right here. It's between the Rockies and the Allegheny Mountain chain, because when you turn that belt upside down, it's the outline of that promised land that he's talking about. The Mississippi River is just an extension of the Nile, but that's what the crack represents. It consists of over 22 states. It's the most fertile, undeveloped territory in North America. And it's comprised over 22 states. It was called the Great Body of the Republic, Egypt of the West. That's why we amended our articles to include the Moorish American National Republic. The land that we're supposed to colonize is the land of the Moors, so aren't we Moors? So therefore, aren't we a republic? So that's why we did what we did. We moving forward, because anytime you have a move, it don't stand still, it moves.
Absolutely.
So we moving it. So anyway, getting back to this Hebrew code, when it says, they become citizens entitled to all the rights and privileges of the native Hebrew. And like I said, there ain't no such thing as American Indian. The reason why these so-called Indian tribes catching holy hell, because they still up under the 14th Amendment. They are Moors. Even the Mexican are Moors. This whole Western Hemisphere is of Moorish descent. I don't care who you are. If you were here, and by us being the first people, then we got the seed going out. They call them Moorish Mexicans. But all the people of the land were dark-colored people. The only reason why these Mexicans that you see now are light, because if you go into Google and put in what is called a black legend, you're going to see Europe was upset with Spain for what they did to the Moors over here. Because we got to remember, the Moors ruled Europe for over 800 years. We gave them life. They didn't know nothing. It was against the law for them to even bathe. So, and how you can even illustrate that, if you look at the movie Robin Hood with Kevin Costner and Morgan Freeman, you'll see who was the master of the art of living and the science of life. And it showed it wasn't them. He was teaching them.
Amen.
So anyway, getting back to this. So when the Congress debated this and said this was the only law, they tied it into scripture law, because the scripture law governs everything in this country. When you go into these courts, you up under the Hebrew law. For instance, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery. All of them laws are what? Scripture law. And whose law is it? It's the Hebrew law. It's our law. But we can't connect to the family. Why? Because we still call ourselves black, Negro, or colored. So now, then it says about the compensation. it says this. It says, here I request the attention of those who claim compensation for the emancipated slave to the text. It says, I'm skipping some certain things. These Hebrew statutes provide that the heathen may be purchased and held as slaves and their posterity after them. That under their naturalization laws, all strangers and sojourners, bond and free, have the privilege of acquiring the rights of citizenship, that all Hebrews, native or naturalized, might ascend and maintain their right to freedom. See what I'm saying? So now, when you look at Article 6 of the Constitution, the judges are bound to it. Then they said if it's anything contrary, then it's notwithstanding. The Fifth Amendment talks about you can't take a person's property without just compensation. That's in the Article 5, right? But the 14th Amendment, Section 4 said we ain't paying you nothing. No debts, no pensions, no compensation, nothing. So that's in violation of Article 6. That's why the Supreme Court had to declare it unconstitutional, because if it was truly parts of the Constitution, they couldn't have done it. Why is that? Because the Constitution is perpetual. Once again, you go back to the Union. See, we got to understand that we were the majority of the founding fathers. At the Continental Convention of 1787, was 35 of us and 20 of them. The Moorish chieftains, it should have been 50. There's the book right here. And I recommend the audience to get this book. It's called Indian Giver by Jack Weatherford. They have a chapter in here called The Indian Founding Fathers. In the book, they make it known that Indian and Moor is synonymous. So we the same people. And we're going back to them again, our brothers. Like I said, the original native people were dark olive people. The whole planet was dark olive people. Why? Because we were the gods of the planet. And now what you see is everybody being lightened. They lighten up everybody to really keep their image going and play on our psyche. But they know good and well who the gods of the planet were. So now, in order to derail that, you got to come with this truth, you see. So here it is, you talking about compensation. We never got paid, because if we had gotten paid, we wouldn't have this man's name. So our prophet was on this page of Leviticus 25:10. Because see, when you subtract 1863 from the year 1913, it's 50 years.
It's long.
So the prophet came in with the hollow, come all ye age as and hear the truth about what? Your nationality and birthright. He tied it back to that inscription. Proclaim liberty throughout the land. Don't he talk about proclaiming your nationality?
It's long.
Right?
It's long.
In the 50-year period.
Indeed.
So he is connecting us. But the people don't understand it. They're looking for Jesus, but Prophet Noah Lee was the Jesus. He is the Jesus that everybody looking for. He's the Hebrew prophet, but yet it's you, but you don't want to accept you because you've been duped to believe that you are nothing. See, what's up is down, and what's down is up. So just like the planet itself, everything just turned upside down. The man that control your habits control you. And see, how they control everything is through the law. Here it is, they using all these de facto laws. Saying this and saying that. And we going according to what it is because we don't know. You understand what I'm saying? But see, the law don't change. Nothing's going to change until we change. But see, we in prophecy. When it says you can't determine the men from the women, there'll be wars and rumors of wars from. You can't determine from the climate, you know, the weather. Then you know things is getting close. We in the mix, but our ancestors are in the mix. So where are our ancestors? They in the air, they in the earth, the water, and the fire. They're all around. That's the Elohim. And see, we are special people, and this movement is special. Why? Because you look at that chart, it's a divine. They don't have no charter higher than that one. They can't go, I don't care what Masonic order you in. Don't go higher than that one. The prophet is in the doorway of the universal order. He's on the 9. That's why the charter number is what? 1099. So anyway, we never got compensated. And see, what they don't tell us is this. You had, like I said, the 4 proclamations. One dealt with the colonization and the compensation, which was the initial Emancipation Proclamation, September 22nd. But they don't tell us that was a compensated Emancipation Proclamation of December 1st, 1862. That ties you back into this Hebrew code talking about the compensation. You see, because in order for us to be actually free, 3 things got to take place. We got to be naturalized first to become citizens. And then check this out. The Black Caucus, they know about all this. We met with them back in the 80s. They checked us out, said we was right, but they was afraid of losing their jobs. And then when we gave them this information, they came with the reparation piece. Oh, everybody else getting paid. How come the black folks ain't getting that? Black folks ain't gonna never get nothing. Why? Because you call yourself black. You're not even a human being. You're not a part of the human family. Show me your lineage in the human family under black. You understand what I'm saying? But if you have a natural descent name that is divine, then you can connect yourself right back to the Godhead. Why? Because we was first. So, now, under that guise, this Negro is nothing but a stateless person. Let me read what it says about a stateless person. A stateless person is someone who is not considered a national by any state under the operation of this law. In other words, a stateless person has no citizenship or nationality. As a matter of international law, citizenship and nationality are congruous, although there may be differences between the 2 concepts in domestic law. So my point is, Negro, black man, colored man, African American, you a stateless person. Regardless of what station you have in this society, you're nothing. And nothing from nothing leaves nothing. So now, the other thing is, leaving from the January the 1st to the compensated, from the initial to the compensated, then you go to the January 1st, 1863. Now, what is so significant about that? Tying you to the prophet. Because I asked Moses, I said, when the prophet said the main thing we must be is to be recognized. There's only but one issue, right? This on the national book. To be recognized by this government. So where did you see this word recognize? You see it in the proclamations. The January 1st proclamation says that the executive, the military, and naval authority thereof is to do what? First, recognize us. Maintain us. Now we got to look up what the word maintain means. What recognize means. Then it says do no act or acts to repress us in any effort we make for our freedom. Now these Moors running around here with this UCC stuff and all this crap, the government ain't paying them no mind. Because they don't see themselves in this. See, well, we advocate paying this European. Because in order for us to be totally free, he got to be compensated. That's what the law says. It's not what I'm saying. The law says that. Now, his ancestors died in the Civil War, never got paid. We never got paid. Why? Because the powers to be kept this under the wraps. And to make it even more so, dealing with this recognition about the prophet and this law of freedom, when it says, first thing we got to be is recognized, right? So how does one be recognized? Through a paper trail. Lawful documentation to support that these laws that you're dealing with has been confirmed through the courts, through the Congress, which they have, but you don't know nothing about it. You going everywhere but the right way. And Rome's sitting back laughing. They know the prophet works. They got his works. We send information to all the chief judges around the country. They got this whole process. They just sitting back watching us. And they know there's internal problems. And as long as there's internal problems, we're going to continue to have problems. So a person asked me, well, just like you asked, brother, what is it going to take to bring us together, right? Rome was getting pissed with the Moors because they're causing all this confusion, right? They won't make things hard for us because we ain't going according to the prophet's instructions, divine instructions, right? So now, I've asked, let's say all the Moors do come together as a collective. We gonna come together as a collective, right? So my question is, if the prophet is made us aware that the 14th and 15th Amendments are not applicable to us, then where do we go? He got the 13th Amendment right there in front of us. He put it there in 1928, but we missed that. We don't deal with this. If the 14th and 15th Amendment have been eliminated, then we must get to the 13th Amendment with its 22nd, because that is the true law. The reason why you don't see it, they played a number game. When it went to the Senate, it was under Bill number S16. It passed the Senate on April 8, 1864. The vote was 38-6. But when it went to the House the first time, it was rejected. You see? Now, some people have seen documentation from the Senate, and they use a page. They say, yeah, well, I see that it was rejected. It was determined in the negative. So they run with that. But see, they don't understand parliamentary procedures. If it's going to be determined in the negative, then my question to them and whoever, where is the vote count to satisfy it was determined in the negative? It ain't there. But it is in the affirmative. When you see it, the next row down, it was determined in the affirmative, then to give you the vote count, 38-6, to give you who voted for it and all that. And how you determine how a bill is passed, you go to Article 1, Section 7 in the Constitution. Read it. I mean, I have it here, but I'm, time-wise. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying is to read it. You're going to see how a bill is passed. You got to have the vote count with the people who voted for it or who didn't. But if you're going to have something say that's determined in the negative, if you don't have no information to validate the negativity, then it's dead. You understand what I'm saying? So, Lincoln got him to reconsider it. If you go to the Great Conspiracy now, the new Great Conspiracy that they have, they've taken out the passage of 1320. You don't even see it. But the earlier ones, if you go to page 603, I believe, where, see, like the key word is this. When Lincoln got them to reconsider it, and also in Article 1, Section 8, to tell you how the president reconsider a bill. It's all there. Mm-hmm. So anyway, when you go to that particular section, Lincoln got him to reconsider because this is what he said. Even in the movie Lincoln, see, they put all this information in front of our face. They got 12 years of slavery, they got Lincoln, they got Durango, they got all these slave pictures coming up because they're trying to make us aware of the history. But if you don't see yourself, don't know yourself, you're just looking at entertainment. They put it right there in front of us. So man, check it. The key word is abolishment. In the movie Lincoln, he said at the last session of Congress, there was an amendment that abolished slavery. So then when you read the 13th Amendment with 2 sections, you don't see no language saying abolishment, but it is in the 1320. So let's read what it says. Now there were 20 sections to this. The vote count, when Lincoln got them to reconsider it, it came back to the House, and they passed the bill on January 31st, 1865. The vote count was 119 to 56, 8 not voting. Then he signed it on the 1st of February, 1865. And then check this out. 20 sections, right? Now, Benedict the prophet said we don't need no 14th and 15th Amendment. Like I said, the 14th Amendment is civil rights. The 15th Amendment is your voting rights. So let's see what the 1320 has for that. You go to, let me go to Section 1. Section 1. It says, all persons shall have the right peaceably to assemble and worship God according to what? The dictates of their own consciousness. This ties you into the First Amendment where everybody had the right of their religious freedom. But here we don't have our consciousness, we have his, right?
Indeed.
Because see, going back to roots, the man was a Muslim, and his generation, he still knew of himself. But the subsequent generation, they made sure we didn't know nothing about ourselves. You better not let the man know you could read and write. Don't talk no Islam stuff. No, that ain't gonna happen. So if the slave master was a Baptist, then all his slaves were such. And that's how we got to be in the church today. Because when you ask your parents, well, Mom, Dad, how do you know you're a Christian? And I'm not knocking a Christian. Because a true Christian is a Muslim, and a true Muslim is a Christian. Why is that? Because they believe in the one God.
Islam.
So, when you go back to that, we didn't have no choice. We in the church learned about Jesus, who looked like him, but yet he's your brother. Because when you go into Revelation, it'll tell you that he had skin like burnt copper. His eyes were like fiery red, and he had hair like lamb's wool. So where did this white boy come with the long blonde hair and blue eyes? I'm tying this back into the First Amendment, dealing with the first section of the 13th Amendment, 20 section. We have the right to worship God according to the dictates of our own conscience. And now, Prophet Noble Juali brought us our own consciousness when he brought us the knowledge of self. He said, man, know thyself and thy Father God, Allah. He brought us to Circle 7, which is the book of the seven seals that's in your Bible. The 5th chapter of Revelations talks about the book of the seven seals. You read the 10th chapter of Revelation, and that illustrates the 101. 1 foot on land and 1 foot on sea. He got all the law, whether it's sea or land. He got it, but he's holding the sister because she represents humanity. There's more to it. But I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm cutting through some stuff. So now we're going to go reading why the prophet eliminate that 15th Amendment because that's your voting rights. But it's engrossed in Section 3 of 1320 where it says the right of citizens to the free and lawful speech and public assembly shall not be denied. Then it says access of citizens to the ballot box shall not be obstructed either by civil or military power. And then you see what's going on with the Negroes trying to vote. They doing this or that. Because, see, a Negro has no rights that a white man is bound to respect, and that's law. They know that law. And the problem that we have is how we've been classified and identified. That's why they can shoot us up in the streets. But I'm going to read this Negro the Beast part, and then you're going to see why. So now, then it says, the military shall always be subordinate to the existing judicial authority over citizens. See, that's why when they had that problem back in the 60s at Selma, who came in to close out everything was the military. The civilians couldn't do it. So anyway, then it says, the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall never be suspended in the presence of the judicial authority. Right? So now we're going to go to Section 19 real quick, because there's so much of this. No, Section 17. I'm going to deal with Section 17 because that deals with the compensated emancipation proclamation, which we don't see. Mm-hmm. And the other thing about these proclamations, y'all, why isn't it, if they made these proclamations permanent parts to the Constitution, why don't you see them? We need to ask ourselves that. The reason why we don't see them, because that gives us everything to sustain ourselves as a nation. See, we're a nation state, just like the Vatican. See, the Vatican mirrored the prophet. Wasn't no Vatican until the prophet did what he did, and you see how they are a nation state. We supposed to be the same way, a wheel within a wheel. Even that dollar bill. Why do you think the pyramid is on a $1 bill and everything's engrossed in 13? That pyramid represents our God status, because we are the gods of this planet. Our ancestors came from the stars here. Even when your nationality card said we on all the divine prophets, why Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius? Why those? There's a reason for that. The archaeologists are saying now they're going and seeing all these pyramids here, there. And they're saying, wow, what's going on? The culture is so similar. Yeah, it's going to be similar. Because the knowledge that we had when we came here, we was a highly advanced civilization. And we went out to the four corners. So you're going to see the pyramids in India, China, in the East. But the first ones were here. The step pyramids are oldest. Here we are. Our prophet made us aware that we the oldest people on the planet. Our flag is over 10,000 years old. Oh, I mean, that's a starting point. They ain't gonna tell you that either. So, if we the oldest, they the youngest. We was on this planet thousands of years before they came. And they found, even if they go up to Mars and Moon, they seeing artifacts of people looking like us with dreads and whatnot. The pyramids up there, but they keeping all this stuff hidden because they know once this truth is known, then that whole process of what they talk about, that religious foundation is dead. But you can't stop this truth. You can delay it. It's all on the Creator's time, and His time is right. So we better get right. Because if these laws are not enforced, as our prophets say, the worst is yet to come. All the wealth and riches that these people think they have going to be going in one short hour. You can't continue to play with the people the way they're doing. See, this is the saving power, and it's through this law of the 13. So now I'm going to deal with the 19th chapter, the 19th section, to show you how this is the amendment that freed us, and not no 13 amendment with 2 sections. You read section 19, it says, when all of the several states shall have abolished slavery. So when did they do that? They did it on November the 18th, 1865. 3/4 of the states voted for this 1320. Now, the prophet says slavery ended in 1865. He didn't tell you exactly what date. But the Civil War ended on April the 9th, 1865. That's Civil War. But slavery itself totally, November 18th, when they ratified this, that's when it was over. Black died, Negro died, all that died. Why? Because we fought to be free. None of them still coming back calling ourselves niggas again. Something wrong with the picture. Then it says, then and thereafter, slavery or involuntary servitude. Now you see how they peaked this? Involuntary servitude. Except as a punishment for a crime. And then listen to what the 1320 is saying about section 19. They say it shall never be established or tolerated in any of the states or territories of the United States except for punishment of crime, right?
Islam.
And then it says, we shall be forever free. Not just free, but forever free. So we ask ourselves, Moors, are you free? The prophet gave us the blueprint to look at so we can free ourselves. Because when he held up those 2 documents, the 101 and the Circle 7, he said, now I'm giving you everything. Now free yourself. He didn't tell us how. But those 2 documents that he gave, he raised up, well, they're called state papers. Look in the law, look in the dictionary and see what a state paper is, then you understand why he did what he did. So I'm just going to leave that one. And go to this one more piece about this Negro. See, what we got to understand, too, the proclamation was a divine contractual agreement. Everybody talking about these adhesion contracts. Well, we contracted with the government with this and that. The only contract you need to sign off is these proclamations. That was the contract. Why? Because it was a divine premise. The laws that they used to substantiate our freedom came from the Creator through our ancestors. So once these laws are enforced, when the prophet said we got to enforce the law to save the nation, what law is he talking about? He's already eliminated the 14th and 15th, so where did you go? You want the law of the 13. That 13 is a very significant number, all through the spirituality. But they say, oh no, 13 is a bad number. It's a great number. So what we got to understand too about these proclamations, they wanted this permanent policy to the Constitution. It is the law of the land. Any judge will tell you, but they ain't going to tell you. You got to talk to them in an intelligent tone. It is the law of the land. I got records to validate that. Then, the proclamation was a divine contractual agreement. They had 37 years to adhere to this, our freedom, from 1863 to the year 1900 was the deadline. And that's why they call it the gradual emancipation, because no 2 states could do it the same, but they had to finalize this process of nationalization, colonization, and compensation by the year 1900. Now, in the early 1900s, a whole lot of stuff took place in this, I'm talking weather-wise, you see. You can't determine from one day to the next, from the weather, this to that, because all this is divine, it's in divine order. We had the lotuses, the dust bowl, all this stuff happening in the early 1900s, right? So by the year 1900, they didn't fulfill their obligation to us. Why? Because we were never naturalized to become citizens. So then they made a law about this Negro. And we want to know why we getting shot up, and ain't nothing happened to the people who's doing it. Because see, they going according to the law. We just don't know it. And check this out. 37 years they had to do this. They had to finalize this. And this is what, in the year 1900, they entered an act of Congress. Charles Carroll, he was a statesman. He was from Maryland. They got a plantation called Carroll Plantation down in South Baltimore. But the Nance, not the plantation, but they made it into a park. But this is what they said about this Negro. And y'all say you're not a Negro, just look at that birth certificate, because that's key, because I'm going to get into that on this other piece. So anyway, here's the law. This is what they're going by that we don't know nothing about. Negro the beast. In the image, let's look at this here. I mean, this Negro. It says, the Bible as it is, the reasoner of the age, the revelator of the century, in the image of God, the Negro a beast, or in the image of God. The Negro and his relation to the human family. The Negro a beast, but created with articulate speech and hands, that he may be service to who? His master, the white man. The Negro, not the son of Ham. Neither can it be proven by the Bible and the argument of the theologian who would claim such, melts to midst before the thunderous and convincing argument of this masterful book, by Charles Carroll. He spent 15 years of his life and $20,000 in his compilation. So this is what this law is saying about this nigger. And even though we say we're not that, but your birth certificate don't prove it. Because as the mother, so is the child. And the birth certificate is that straw man. And that's why the prophet don't give up the slave name, because you're going to get paid through it. But I'm going to get into that in a minute. It says, as a matter of fact, the Negro was never a slave. To conceive the design of enslaving an individual, we must presuppose that he is free. The first act of enslavement is to deprive him of his liberty. That's his birthright. This the Negro never had since the creation of man. The Negro is innate. Hence his status in the universe, his relation to man, like that of every other animal, was fixed irrevocably by God in the creation. And no act, and this is where they got us, Negro, black, African American, and no act upon man's part, whether legislative, executive, or judicial, can change it. Then they says this, to illustrate. Check this out now. It's a law book, hidden. Suppose a man commits a felony and is arraigned and convicted and sentenced to prison for a term of years, but makes his escape, flees to some foreign country where he lives out his days without being apprehended. Did that man in his exile live out his days and die a free man? Question. No jurist would so decide. From the hour of his conviction, that man lived and died the property of the state. See, remember I said we were stateless people, right? And that's why even your wives, your husband, they don't belong to you. They belong to the state. That's why they can come in. If you beat your child and your child make a complaint to the officials, they're going to come in, lock you up, and take your child. Why? Because you state property, Negro, black man, African American. But under the Hebrew laws, it don't work that way. You understand? So anyway, then it says, so it is in this case, under the law of God, the Negro, like every other animal, is the property of man, without reference to whether he is ever brought into contact with him or not. Man. The mere fact that man, in his blind criminal folly, declines to exert that control over the Negro, in common with the rest of the animals which God designed him to have and commanded him to exercise, does not free the Negro. It can only damn man for his shameless contempt of God's plan of the creation, and for his wanton violation of what? Divine law.
Islam.
Okay.
Islam. Powerful, powerful, powerful words. So, National Grand, as you know, Moorish science is so vast. The information is infinite. So, we definitely couldn't cover everything in one show or one presentation. But in closing, do you have any closing statements or thoughts or words or advice to give to our people who are starting to it's starting to be revealed about their nationality and birthrights? Or in closing or in brief, what would you like to leave the people with for this particular presentation?
Well, like I said, there's more to this. I'm just skimming it. The only salvation for our people is to proclaim your nationality according to the true teachings of our prophet. And if we don't do that, you're not honoring your ancestors. Very simple. This is the only way out. That's why they said in the comments that this is the only remaining law for us to utilize to actually become free. Because these laws that we speak of are not man's law, but the divine law. I read the divine scriptures to confirm what it is, and that's why our prophet had to come. And like I said on occasion, the man that controls your habits control you, and they control everything through a fictitious de facto law. You want to be de jure. And the only way that you can do that, you got to proclaim that national, get this nigger, this Negro, this black off of you. In order for even this process will help our President Barack Obama. Because look at his family. Look at himself. So, he's sitting in the seat of Lincoln. The congressmen are sitting in the seat of Moses. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, they sitting in the seat playing games with us. But they don't know. Allah got this. And if they don't do what's right by us, damn them. So the thing is, this is the saving power for everybody. This is the only way out. Why? Because it's God's law. That's it.
Islam National Grand Sheik, we thank you so very much for taking out the time to speak with us here at Circle 7 TV. As stated earlier, the information is so vast and so much to cover, but we just wanted to break ground with this information. You do have the Moorish Bureau of Vital Statistics, you have the Moorish School of Law and History, we have our Sunday conference calls, and we have our Sunday school forum. So once again, Islam, thank you to the audience for paying attention. Take the time to educate yourself, research and cross-reference this information. From Circle 7 TV, this is your brother O-Bey, signing out. Thank you, National Grand Sheik. Islam.